tuned in to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebs and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and enthogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck, Rico Lamitte, and Nicole West, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time. Thank you for getting high at 9 with us.
Oh, yeah. Good morning, everyone. It's Thursday, October 13th. Today is World Thrombosis Day, International Plain Language Day, Metastatic Breast Cancer Awareness Day, Save the Tatas, National Yorkshire Pudding Day, and National Train Your Brain Day. Thank you for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and especially subscribe to us on YouTube as well as all other social media platforms. We're live every Monday through Friday on YouTube and audio only on Clubhouse. And if you do happen to be joining us via Clubhouse, you can also participate in the show by raising your hand if you have a brief comment on the story most recently presented. But without further ado, let's pay a quick bill so we can get right back to the news.
At True Classic OG, we live by one motto: stay true. We stay true to our legacy cut of True OG that's always fresh, piney, gassy, and delicious. We represent the spirit, hustle, and diversity of our great city of angels. And we stay true to the spirit of this plant, doing everything in-house to ensure that you get the highest quality and consistency with every batch. And that's what's made us LA's favorite OG. True Classic OG. Stay true, Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah. Hope everyone's having an amazing Thursday today. Starting us off today, that's right, we're going to do it ladies first because she's a cannabis business consultant, an industry veteran, a bullshit buster, and the self-proclaimed data bitch. With over 13 years in the regulated cannabis market, but with deep roots still in the legacy industry. She was also known as Jail Google when she was serving time for a white-collar cannabis crime. That's right, it is none other than the Nicole West.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Thursday. Happy Thursday. The week is almost over. Friday Eve, if you will. Well, my headline today is also coming out of Michigan, much like my headline did yesterday, and much like my love for the D, we will continue to talk about Detroit. We actually have a very interesting story. There's been a ton of police activity in regards to the unregulated market in Michigan over the past couple months. But there is one Michigan cannabis business owner who is stunned by the state police SWAT-style raid on his hemp business. So in Traverse City, Michigan, it was a quiet morning on Thursday, October 6th, inside Traverse City's Great Lakes Hemp Supplement Supply Store, cannabis business with CBD products and a decal on the window that reads, "Healers, not dealers." The soul is shattered. "This is a raid," shouted Michigan state troopers who rushed in through the front door. Someone screaming, "State police," said 26-year-old office manager Megan O'Brien, who was in the meeting with customers in another room. "I came around the corner and there was 12 of them coming at us with guns." It was the state police marijuana and tobacco investigation section, a special enforcement unit that targets the addition of tobacco and tax violations, marijuana-related criminal activity that takes place outside of cannabis regulatory agencies' jurisdictions. Police suspect the business was an illegal dispensary. 10 miles away, a small cannabis farm and private residence in the Great Lake hemp supplements owner Michael Thur was simultaneously handcuffed and placed into the back of a police car, where he'd spend the next 5 hours minus a couple bathroom breaks in jail. In the car. Sorry. Police allege that Thoreau's business is breaking laws and regulating the commercial production and sale of marijuana. They were looking for all evidence to assist in the investigation of the narcotics and manufacturing of trafficking and continued a criminal enterprise of unlicensed marijuana grows and violations of the Michigan Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act, according to the search warrant that they were served with. While marijuana is legal to use in the state, it's not legal to commercially sell for profit outside of the licensed market, and there are guidelines in the state since 2008. Through claims that the business operates openly and legally under, now I state in his words, under the Medical Marijuana Act. So the deeper I read into this, the more I think that this might have actually been a caregiver situation, which there has been a lot of pushback. I know everyone was watching that over the past year from the businesses kind of fighting back against the caregiver model in Michigan. So Thu's business sells hemp CBD products, helps certify medical marijuana patients, and acts as a compassion club, providing certified patients marijuana. Rating properties isn't the way you address questions that you might offer difference of opinions in regarding to the law, he said. Now, I'm curious really as far as the difference of opinion, because this is something that they've been kind of coming after for a while. And I feel like people that are in his situation kind of know that this is coming. So the state police verified the search warrants were served, but declined any further comment, citing that it is an ongoing investigation and that he has not yet been charged with any crime. The seizure of the records lists more than 400 suspected marijuana plants from a field, greenhouse, and a basement grow at his residence, in addition to 50 suspected peyote cactuses, 6 bags of suspected psychedelic mushrooms, a rifle shotgun, and this is how you know that he was really doing it for the patients, $401 in cash, and loose marijuana flower and stems around the building. Though said his grower partners is a cultivator for the Native American Church and federally protected from prosecution, growing or possessing peyote or psilocybin mushrooms. His John Deere tractor was loaded into a flatbed and impounded. Most of the plants were chopped down and burned in a pile, leaving a charred circle of lawn. Man, the John Deere tractor getting hauled away and impounded is one of the saddest things I could imagine seeing on a farm. Though said the marijuana was grown by his father and a friend, both certified caregivers, permitted to grow up to 12 plants each per registered patient. The plants not accounted for by the caregivers' limits were tiny little seedlings in 6-inch pots used for genetic testing, not for consumption, and many were hemp, not marijuana. He met with the state police trooper on Monday to obtain a copy of the search warrant that the police failed to leave behind when they departed the business last week. Of course they did. Though says he hopes that the recreational marijuana dispensaries with partners in Traverse City, and if they were that he hopes to open one in Traverse City if they were going to allow it. I'm very curious if they'll actually allow it now after all of this. He stood outside the Capitol in Lansing on Tuesday, October 11th for the Michigan Cannabis Harvest Rally, celebrating cannabis and industry with speakers, music activists, regulators, and business owners spread across the lawn. Most of the marijuana community already knew of Thu's run-in with police, and he spoke about it publicly on social media. No matter what the issue was, primarily the invasion of the cannabis activity is no longer an appropriate action. So they're a little bit bothered by the way that they went about it. He keeps saying, like, you could have just called, you could have just said something. He says, I think Michigan State Police do what Michigan State Police do, and they don't like to listen to agencies to tell them to restrain themselves. Thompson says, this is a constant issue that we've seen with Michigan State Police going above and beyond what they really need to do. Thu took classes and passed the test to obtain a certification as a medical assistant to better help medical marijuana customers. He said he's broke and focuses on helping patients, not subverting the licensed market to get rich. The $401 definitely proved that. The raid comes as many within the marijuana industry are complaining of unlicensed marijuana infiltrating the competing licensed business. And this is something that a lot of licensed businesses are complaining about right now. The CRA this week has suspended also for 30 days, and like I discussed yesterday, and fined a Detroit medical marijuana dispensary after an inspector in May of 2021 observed backpacks and duffel bags filled with suspected untagged marijuana in the shops. Since it wasn't labeled with the industry tracking tags, there remains a possibility that it was a black market marijuana seeking into the regulated market. Brian Hanna, a former marijuana inspector and investigator for the CRA, as well as a prior state police criminal analyst, was named as as the acting director of the Marijuana Licensing Agency in September. He's indicated plans for increased enforcement and illicit marijuana. While HANA's role to enforce rules within the regulated market, the CRA also works with state police to conduct investigations related to black market marijuana. So it's also unclear if there is a relationship contributed to the Traverse City raids last week and these other illicit businesses. There's been some clamor that that might be the case. So they are definitely still trying to state that this is under the medical marijuana guise and the Caregivers Act. Theo previously licensed his farm, capable of growing 1,100 hemp plants with the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Department, but let the license lapse this year. He said most of his hemp farm plot, rigged with an irrigation system, sat empty when police arrived. The MDARD still licenses industrial hemp farms, and the CRA took over supervision of any processing and production of the sale of related to hemp extracts, including CBD, this last February. Tho said that he began the application process to become a hemp processor, but stopped based on the wording in the application that indicated CBD was illegal. I hope to process hemp CBD oil, tinctures, food, beverages, and animal feed once legal in Michigan, said the checkbox on the application. Tho questioned why he would obtain a license if he still couldn't legally produce CBD. When questioned about the hemp processor application wording, CRA spokesman David Harns said that the language was removed in September, but he didn't immediately have further comment on the legality of processing CBD. So basically what I'm hearing is this beginning of this year, if he would have filled out the application, he still wouldn't have been able to do CBD products. So he was like, why the fuck will I do that? They just changed the application in September, but he maintained producing the medical marijuana, not the hemp products. I feel like there's just so much convolution here because, first of all, it's the same fucking plant. And second of all, there are kind of three different agencies that are all going over on top of each other as to what the right answer is on this and what they are or are not allowed to do. I know that the regulated market in Michigan is not happy with the amount of illicit cannabis getting into the industry. So this is definitely something that's getting pushed from the licensed businesses for sure. But with that said, I'm super curious to see how it all shakes out and how the caregiver model actually ends up when this is all over and said and done in Michigan. And I'm Nicole West, getting high at 9 with y'all.
I mean, I thought they got rid of the whole caregiver thing and they were telling everybody that it's not a legal excuse or legal legal discourse in order to get out of getting caught with cannabis.
Sort of. They didn't get rid of the caregiver model so much as they've been trying to limit it. Like you still can be a caregiver in Michigan, but they've been very clearly saying like that's not how the Compassion Club, that is gone. That's what you probably remember. The Compassion Club, where you used to bring a bunch of the way Michigan used to work back in the day.
Similar to California, right? Back in the day.
No. We would all be caregivers, right? Like say all of us. And then we go to a place that is a Compassion Club and I'm a caregiver and I grow, you're a caregiver and you grow. And we all go to a place and we hang out at that place. We pay a membership and then patients come to that place. Club. Yeah. Yep. And then patients come to that place, but then me and you make friends because I'm a caregiver and you're a patient, and then I'll be your caregiver. It doesn't actually interact with the business. And then that started to kind of trickle in where the business was starting to do it.
So let me kind of just here's what I'm hearing. So basically there's this place, this business that charges a membership fee. And if I'm a caregiver, I bring my product that I finish to there to meet patients to sell it to them.
Yes, that's how it used to work, and that is what stopped. That is what stopped in the new regulation. But you can still be a caregiver because the idea of taking away a sick person's ability to have somebody help them is not gone. But they've limited it to the amount that you can caregive for now, and then you can't do the Compassion Club anymore. That's gone. That is
what did they limit it to?
I want to say it's 3 patients now.
I think before you could have like 7 or 5 patients or something like that, and you could have like up to like 75 plants per patient, if I remember prior. And then
either way, this story is extremely convoluted, and it's very, I think, state police grossly overreacted. I don't see any reason to come into a business guns drawn. Like you're taking down, El Chapo.
El Chapo.
Especially for nothing more than some hot hemp, huh, Gretchen?
I mean, they should have came in, checked his paperwork. It sounds as if his paperwork is questionable, given that he doesn't know what the regs are, since they keep changing them. But to just go in guns drawn and blazing, I think is just the most ridiculous thing. And it's Traverse City, not Traverse.
Oh, Traverse City.
All the Michigans.
He said, he mentioned the situation that I had discussed yesterday in regards to the license business that was given, like, they came in, they found pounds of weed, right? They gave him like time to come back and give him the camera footage. They didn't. They came back 6 months later. Now it's suspension. The suspension doesn't even start until October 20th. So they get until the 20th to actually close their doors for what they're able to say is probably illegal activity. But there was no fucking guns drawn. They didn't come in all cray-cray. Like, why couldn't they have treated this man the same way that they treated the gentleman that they asked for his paperwork and came back 30 days later like normal fucking people?
Well, and I would ask this question to you Californians, because I have seen some raids in California where people are coming in pretty hot.
I have been raided. I've been raided multiple times.
Enforcement agency show up? Like, wouldn't someone from the cannabis governing crowd show up along with the state police?
It depends. Honestly, it depends on, for them, they said that the tobacco people were, which is like the outside of the regulation people in Michigan. That's they're the ones that kind of police that other side. It's not the cannabis division. It's the tobacco, and basically like they're getting the hemp portion of it. So they were there with the state police, but that was that there was no cannabis people there, like from the regular cannabis division. But I've not been raided since regulation, like full-blown kick down the fucking door raid. But when Sweetleaf was raided, I no longer was there, but they did come with 4 agencies when they did, and they did a tactical raid across all the stores at the same time, simultaneously throughout the whole city.
Did they all have M16s and assault weapons?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, bro.
They did every time for me too. They would just break stuff and throw food cups on the walls and just destroy shit.
Well, M16s and M16s and assault weapons. What a great way to segue to you, Jason Beck, the fighter of freedom and all things Republican weed. Definitely the longest running retailer in the history of regulated cannabis and the member of whatever political party might piss you off the most. Jason Beck, the highest Republican today, potentially the lowest Democrat tomorrow. What do you have for us today, Jason?
Well, that's because I stay high, Nicole. You know what I mean? You got to stay on top of the pack, if you know what I mean. But today, my story is interesting, very, very interesting. It comes out of Politico, out of their Politico pro-cannabis subscription. So we do not, unfortunately, have a link for this article. But it deals with a story that we've been following along this week, where we say the vet's advocate pushes back on a letter asking Schumer to hold the research bill. Amy Rising, a key advocate working on legislation expanding veterans' access to cannabis and medical marijuana research, is pushing back on a letter penned by the Global Alliance for Cannabis Commerce and the Law Enforcement Action Partnership, that is GACC and LEAP, for those of you that like acronyms. The letter called on Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat from New York, to hold a medical marijuana research bill. The bill favors large pharmaceutical companies and could make the relationship between doctors and patients who use marijuana more complicated, the groups argue. Rising, however, contends that GACC and LEAP letter misses the spirit of the legislation. In a quote, she says the Medical Marijuana and Cannabidiol Research Expansion Act was written for patients, not corporations, Rising said in an email to Politico. Title III was designed to allow veterans the ability to receive medical cannabis recommendations in states where medical cannabis is legal. Physicians and VA hospitals are governed by federal law, and Rising explains that the bill's implied intent is that doctors are allowed to discuss and recommend cannabis for medical use if they are in a state with a medical program. Well, here we go. And I did bring Amy Rising in to comment on this. And for all of you that don't know, I've known Amy for a number of years. She is my work wife in DC. And Amy Rising, I can't wait to see what you have to say about this.
Well, Jason,
are you Go ahead, Amy.
Well, I just want to say that I know that you guys have been following. I think that Gretchen had slightly misconstrued springtime when she talked about it. So I am glad to come on and set the record straight for patients, not corporations, as I said. And I think that JCC has completely conflated the intent where they are expand market research, industry research. We are expand medical. They are not the same thing, and they cannot be governed the same. So that's essentially this bill from the implied intent of Title III is extremely important. So, you know, we have been having more dialogue about that. I'm very excited to see what happens in November.
Oh boy. Go ahead, Gretchen.
I'm sorry. I was getting only kind of every other word. I'm not quite sure what, Amy, you were saying about this bill. What part is not being understood properly?
Said you slightly misconstrued the intent of the bill in the springtime when you announced it. I said that it is being conflated, the argument that Brand bringing to the table. He is conflating industry and market research with medical, so conflating implied intent. And I don't know, you know, if he really understands Title III in that section. And that is not my problem. Corporations.
So she's saying that within Title III, that is where the implication is coming in, and that this bill is set up more for veterans and patients as opposed to corporations.
It's going to be important to change that scheduling to make it possible to do medical research, and medical versus market research. I don't really know if it makes a big difference, because it's helpful to have market research and see how patients are consuming the products, you know, and that's where we learn that people's brains are so different, that, you know, all kinds of different products work for all kinds of different people, you know, slightly different ways. Like, I know we're not supposed to be saying sativa or indica, but I think the dosing sort of research tools that were developed where people would put information in on what cannabis they were smoking and then tell you how it resulted in a change in their pain or in their anxiety or in their sleep. You know, we found out that half of the people who use cannabis regularly for sleep use sativa, which we would consider stimulating. So the idea of, you know, finding these specific strains that are going to work for specific conditions really got a bit debunked in market research, and that wasn't, you know, classic medical research. So I hope when they do go to modify these schedules and they're opening up cannabis to research, we should all really be just as engaged in what the market research is telling us as in, you know, standard medical research. Because standard medical research, going in front of an IRB, just getting started on doing medical research is going to take, you know, months to years before you can even give your first dose of cannabis to a potential patient.
Well, I would like to say, I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. But he already took care of that for us at the VA. My situation is completely different from I'm a veteran, and I do solely go to the VA for my health care. So Dr. Leo Halster was doing research at the VA in the 1970s. That to stand on. We also have some of Dr. Machulam's work that we can use. And I know that we have guaranteed flowers as well as extracts in this bill. I'm not concerned about any kind of like market research, because we already have. It's more about trying to fit, and I think that we're going to be able to see multiple I don't think it's just going to be one. And it's not like any pharmaceuticals. And I know that people have been concerned about, like Pfizer or Vine or something coming into like buy a license and everything else, but you're going to have situation squared. And I don't know that any one of those companies is really prepared to do that right now. Have any qualms about having research for medical versus like that will be up to the discretion of the doctor who decides to do because the money is going to be available from NIH.
Thank you so much, Amy, for coming up and helping us understand this a little bit better.
Yes.
And I want to know more. Maybe we can do some sort of breakout and just kind of go in a little bit deeper, because you have immense amounts of knowledge about this that we would love to pick your brain on, and anything that you could share with us, we would love to hear. So thank you for all the work that you're doing and for joining us today. And Jason, for that story. We're going to go ahead and hop to our next correspondent, Miss Gretchen Gailey.
Oh, go ahead. I thought in the roller sheet I had it, but go ahead.
No, you can go for it. I just wanted to get hopped. I've said it a couple
times.
Okay,
no, my bad. Political strategist by day and a baker by night, a true female multitasker who can not only bake up a storm, but also knows how to make the sausage on Capitol Hill. She's the founder of Panoptic Strategies and our very own Washington insider. Taking off the apron and coming on up, it is none other than the Gretchen Gailey.
Good afternoon, Jason. My headline is coming today from Yahoo News, and it is, do any states face the risk of a dominant cannabis market operator? I thought this one was interesting, and I wanted to, move away a little from my political roots today, because I feel like this is something that we continually debate, is what's really going to happen when legalization comes. Articles by Andrew Ward. Is the American cannabis sector facing the prospect of just a few players dominating the market, while worries abound in some corners of the space? Sources say that is not the current case. Alan Brockstein, founder of 420 Investor and New Cannabis Ventures, told Benzinga that while a single dominant player would be bad for cannabis, no state currently faces that prospect. He said there are, however, states that have a few players that may dominate, especially early, but this tends to get resolved over time as competitors mature. Despite no state facing a single operator running its market, concerns remain, with advocates worried that competition will fall by the wayside. One state, Florida, is often used as an example of the pros and cons of a supposed single player dominating a market. Several MSOs have entered the Florida medical market in recent years, with Trulieve outpacing the pack by a substantial sum. As reported by Marijuana Business Daily, September 2022 data from the State Office of Medical Marijuana Use shows that Trulieve operates 120 dispensaries. Curaleaf Holdings has 51, Liberty Health Sciences also 51, round out the top four. MUV has 59. Despite the company's strong dispensary presence, respondents weren't concerned. Brockstein said that market is pretty fully vertically integrated, which can lead to dominance in the early days. Offering data shows that Trulieve's market share has declined as other operators increase production capabilities. Despite any possible declines in market dominance, Trulieve has a substantial lead on medical cannabis sold in Florida. From May 2019 to September 2022, the company sold 12.1 billion milligrams of THC. Coming in second was Curaleaf with only 3.3 billion. While dominant operators and investors say Trulieve leaves room for other names to prosper in the market. Michael Sassano, CSO of Somai Pharmaceuticals, said Florida is an ideal example of how a company can capture a significant market share while allowing other companies to thrive. Big players are always good anchors, but their presence doesn't hamper growth. Morgan Paxia, co-founder and managing director at Poseidon, said companies that focus on scaling in a specific market have gained large enterprise value, momentum, and operating leverage, but not complete market control. Undeterred by major players, Poseidon recently invested in the Florida brand Sunburn. Paxia noted a Salem. Stop.
Oh yeah, get them, Salem, get them.
Paxia noted a possible adult use legalization vote in 2024 and sales starting in 2025 as prime factors. We see it as a market with room remaining for strong operators offering unique products. Various sources also talked about Illinois. A few names compete for market dominance there, but one company is outpacing the pack, like Florida, with most enormous production canopy in the state, and growing national brand Cresco Labs is seen as a dominant market force. Today, the company has the potential to reach up to 630,000 square feet of cultivation canopy in Illinois. However, like Florida, sources don't see Cresco's dominance as a sign of a single company taking over the market. Brockstein noted that dispensary caps limit Cresco or any other player from controlling the entire Illinois market. The company currently operates 10 stores across the state. This market isn't suffering at all from domination at this time. The story goes on and on to talk a little bit more about how little players can still factor in. I'm wondering what the folks on our stage think, if they truly see these bigger MSOs as being an issue for some of the smaller players. I kind of agree with the story. I don't think that total market domination is coming from these MSOs. I think what's going to happen with these major MSOs is they're going to get bought out by much bigger boys who then have the money to do shit right when it comes to scaling. This is Gretchen for High at 9 News.
I 100% agree with you, Gretchen. A majority of the MSOs, sorry if you guys are listening, run their businesses like straight garbage. I've talked to the people that work there. Like I've trained in a lot of staff throughout my 12, 13 years in regulated market. And I have a lot of staff that I keep in contact with that call me for like, hey, what do you think about this on like a regular? Almost every single person I've had that has gone to work for a Curaleaf or a True Leaf or something calls me and is like, I don't know what the fuck they're doing, but like the mom and pop shop that we learned at did better at training us, did better at caring about us, did better. And like the amount of times that I'm hearing it, and I'm hearing it in every state that has, some big conglomerate from people like, this is not, they don't teach us about the product. They don't teach us about the industry. They don't teach us about the laws. We're just these little fucking robots, like roboting around, answering questions based on exactly what they're telling us, not on anything else. And unless you're like really going above and beyond to be that person on your own, they're not giving you those tools. So I agree with you, Gretchen, because I think that they just have the dominance. And when you have those conversations with the people that don't actually want to be in the industry, they almost all have some, well, when we're this big and get bought out by a big corporation, they're no different. They're just looking for a bigger corporation, right? They're the ones that have some 2-3 year plan to be like, well, when the consolidation happens, when Pfizer shows up, when fucking, Coors shows up, they're all preparing for the same thing that the smaller people are. It's just they're more likely to get it because they've got the market share. I don't think any of them are going to be here long term. I think they're going to get bought by people that actually know how to run businesses because most of them.
I agree with that. And then a big thing that they bring up in this story towards the end, if you keep going, looking at the smaller guys, is the Colorado market. And just how general competition, there are plenty of successful smaller businesses that the big boys bring normalization and they bring the scale.
Colorado kept all outside of Colorado residents from owning the businesses until 3 years ago. And that changed the game for Colorado. And that really gave them a lot of, you could not be a publicly traded entity in Colorado until 3 years ago. You couldn't have ownership if you were not a resident up until 3 years ago. So it did kind of keep that smallness there. The few that are big happen big in Colorado, like Live Well and the Green Solution. Those are the two largest in Colorado, and Native Roots, 3 largest. And they were all Colorado residents that just went from something small to something very big. But Native Roots, or I think it was Live Well just acquired the clinic chain. And so Live Well is becoming like the conglomerate in Colorado.
That's
so
a monster now.
Bro, Live Well's the largest in the state. They've got like 20 something stores. Yeah. And so there is a conglomerate within Colorado, but it happened internally. It did not happen, coming in, but now that you can get MSOs, you can get publicly traded entities in there. You don't have to be resident. I think that will change, but they did a good thing by keeping anybody other than residents out to keep that from happening.
Well, Gavin Newsom really cut the throat of every single cultivator in California when he immediately allowed for vertical integration. I was working on a distro play right when legalization happened in California, and the moment we saw the vertical integration, we all knew it was happening. And, I don't know if anybody knows how he became an entrepreneur, but it was the Getty family. J. Paul Getty's descendants gave him $5 million to buy a winery. So he's in the pocket. He's in the pockets of the industrial robber barons. And so he had no interest in anything other than corporatization of
But
California
as
cannabis.
a business person, specifically in cannabis, without vertical integration, there's no possibility for profitability. So
No,
without
there was
that,
supposed to be, yes, totally, Nicole, but there was supposed to be again a few year window with the acre cap and no
oh,
vertical
you're talking about the
integration.
ability. You're talking about the ability to stack licenses in cultivation.
Yeah.
Because that's more of a concern.
That's
Because
different
vertical
than
integration,
vertical
if you stayed
integration.
small,
No, it was both. So they had the inability to stack licenses, the acreage cap, and a window for vertical integration as well, so that there would be a few years for local players to get set in each of these modalities. And
I don't
kind of
ever
get-
even remember the vertical integration portion. I remember
Yeah,
the
I do.
farm sizes. I don't remember
Yeah.
any of that. And like at the end of the day, I think that would actually be a disadvantage, in my opinion. If you stopped the ability to do a vertical integration early, the small guys don't have a chance to fucking do anything. If you let them vertically integrate early and they vertically integrate small, they can expand on everything in a,
right.
in
They
a
had the
Yeah,
they had the
I'm
micro
not
business
sure.
licenses.
Yeah, micro business license is a vertically integrated license.
Those,
and so
those were
therefore-
yes,
Yeah,
but they
so-
were under a certain size. But if you look in
They
most
still
other
are.
in most other businesses, distribution is not vertically integrated with the businesses. Is handled by a separate private company.
Like alcohol specifically.
Like alcohol, medical supplies, restaurant
You can self-distribute
supplies.
your alcohol though.
You can very much so, very much.
just not as profitable.
I'm just saying if we would have
Not
had
efficiently.
if we would have had this carve out for the first few years, then we could have had smaller companies occupying these spaces and growing. So when the acreage cap was gone, the license stack was gone, and the vertical integration ban was gone, they would have been able to compete with these MSOs a little bit more. I'd like to say that the thing I saw when I saw you at Hall of Flowers, Nicole, great to see you. What I saw at Hall of Flowers was the people
He's a
who
real boy.
the people who are thriving, for the most part, that I saw were smaller operators that are creating flowers that really care about what they're doing. And a lot of these folks that have 40 people in branded T-shirts and a $50,000 booth were walking around. There was no one at their booth. They were hustling around trying to get people at their booth, and they couldn't really figure out what was going wrong. And at least in California, because we have such an extant culture, what we're seeing is a lot of these guys who are rushing to the top with this exit plan floundering and failing, and a lot of smaller creators of really high quality products and experiences are surviving and on their way to multi-state licensing deals and actually doing well because they care about their consumers, the product, and what they're doing.
Did you get a chance to go by the True Classic booth?
I did, but the guy who was giving away the samples wasn't there, and so I missed out. I still haven't got to smoke it yet.
Bro, you got to get that, bro. That shit is fire,
dude. I'd love to smoke OG more than anything. So hell yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for that, Gretchen. That was a fantastic story. We very much appreciate that. We're gonna. That's right. Flying into LAX and you want to taste some of the best weed in the world? Then stop by LAXCC, the closest dispensary to LAX. Located at 8332 Lincoln Boulevard and open from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week. Always make LAXCC your first stop when you touch down in LA and score like a winner. And don't forget to tell them I sent you and mention you'd like to get high at 9 for 10% off your full order.
The thoughts and opinions general shade thrown on the High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers, not those of any other speaker or its followers. The statements made do not constitute legal or accounting advice, and our speakers make no representation regarding the legal status of any substance in any country, area, or territory of its authorities. The views expressed in this room do not establish fiduciary relationships. Our sponsors do not comply, constitute the endorsement by us, expression, any opinion whatsoever, any person of any speaker on stage. If you're an easily offended person, the show's probably not for you. Also, maybe it's time to smoke more weed.
Oh, yeah. October 23rd and 24th, join Bella Flora for their celebrity golf and poker tournament with confirmed attendees like Derek Fisher, formerly of the LA Lakers, celebrity chef Todd English, David Justice from the Atlanta Braves, and Paul Pierce, along with many others, with a portion of proceeds benefiting the nonprofit Freedom Grow. Join Bella Flora in Temecula Creek, California on October 23rd and 24th. Go to bellaflora.com for full sponsorship opportunities.
All right. Well, up next, we have Matthew St. Germain. Matthew St. Germain is probably one of our most legacy legends on the show. He is continuing the work of the Merry Pranksters and continuing to keep us all laughing and educated. Super smart, super funny, super fun to hang out with at Hall of Flowers. Matthew, can you give us a great story today? Bring us some funnies.
I don't know if I can guarantee a great story. First off, sorry for being late. My daughter ate bad sushi, and so I was up all night cleaning up barf. So I'm a little out of sorts today.
Boy.
So just give me a bit of slack.
Oh no, we lost
You
him.
just went mute. You just went mute on us.
Did you touch your cord?
There he is.
There we are.
There
There
you
we
go.
go. There we go.
Yeah.
All
It's
right.
Gavin Newsom.
Okay.
Gavin Newsom caught you talking shit,
Gavin
bro.
Newsom. No, that was
Oh,
the
shit.
Gettys. That was the Gettys. They clipped his wire.
Oh shit! There's a CHP car outside. You guys, I gotta go. Okay, so I'm gonna edit my article on the fly. I was up with my kids sick all night. If you didn't hear me, and I got muted, so just bear with me here. This one is near and dear to my heart because I love Eric Andre. This is a story about comedians suing Atlanta over a drug search program that's been going on that is just dastardly, right? So comedians Eric Andre and Clayton English are challenging a police program at the Atlanta airport they say violates the constitutional rights of airline passengers, particularly black passengers, through racial profiling and coercive searches just as they are about to board flights. You are going to trip on this. I don't know if anybody, I'd like to hear if anyone's flown out of Atlanta at the end of this. Lawyers for the two men filed in a lawsuit Tuesday in federal court in Atlanta alleging that they were racially profiled and illegally stopped by Clayton County Police at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. The two men, well-known comedians and actors, say officers singled them out during separate stops roughly 6 months apart because they are black and grilled them about drugs as other passengers watched. Andre said, people were gawking at me and I looked as if I looked suspicious when I had done nothing wrong. He called the experience dehumanizing and demoralizing. While the stated purpose of the program is to fight drug trafficking, the lawsuit said drugs are rarely found, criminal charges seldom result, and seized cash provides a financial windfall for the department. Underline that part. Clayton County police officers and investigators from the county district attorney's offices selectively stop passengers inside the narrow jet bridge used to access the planes, the lawsuit says. So after you've shown them your ticket and you're walking and you think you're home free through the security and on the plane, this is when they're doing it. The officers take the passengers' boarding passes from them and identification and interrogate them, sometimes searching their bags before they board their flights, the lawyer says in the lawsuit. The police department calls the stops consensual encounters and says they are random, but in reality, the stops rely on coercion and targets are selected disproportionately based on their race. Police records show that from August 30th, 2020 to April 30th, 2021, there were 402 jet bridge stops. Passengers' race was listed for 378 of those. Of the 378, 211 or 56% were black, and people of color accounted for 258 total stops or 68%. The 402 stops resulted in 3 reported drug seizures, about 10 grams of drugs from one passenger, 26 grams of suspected THC gummies from another, and 6 prescription pills without a prescription from a third, the lawsuit says. Only the first and third person were charged. However, these 400 stops yielded over $1 million in cash and money orders from a total of 25 passengers. All were allowed to continue their travels. Only 2, the ones with drugs, were charged. 8 of the 25 challenged the seizures, and police settled each case, returning some of the seized money. And so here we go. We got another stop and shake people down based on their ethnicity and appearance, a completely illegal violation of the Fourth Amendment. And I'm wondering if anybody's flown out of Atlanta and seen these people or seen this type of a thing happen. Y'all.
Wow. All I can say is wow. Like, I've flown so many places, so many times. And what you're telling me, Matthew St. Germain, is that after you've gone through security and you're sitting there at the gate waiting to board your flight, that some random cop is going to come up to you and start to talk to you and want to search your bag.
So,
even worse, Jason. So they say, hey, Jay, your flight's boarding. Let's see your boarding pass. You show them your boarding pass. They put in a little scanny thing, kaboop, and then you walk through the little metal hallway tube that they attach to the plane. That's they're waiting in there right before the plane door.
Oh, wow.
So,
Yeah, so you're just like,
wow.
Oh, cool, I'm on my plane. All
Hey, I'm
like,
cool, dude.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
So,
and then
I've had 2 really weird, 3 really weird experiences in airports. The 2 times I've been served subpoenas to attend federal court. They've been waiting for me at the gate both times in different airports throughout the U.S. So agents with their badges, Miss West, and I'm just like, my fucking heart drops. They're waiting for me at my gate. One of the times I was late and I'm fucking running and I'm like, what? And then they're like, here's your subpoena. Yeah, and like, I'm like, what the fuck just happened right now? And then one time I was in Utah and I was talking really loudly to a woman it was a Mother's Day who had lost her son in the war. We were drinking and I was talking about cannabis and how cannabis would be better. Cannabis would be better. I was stuck at a fucking layover. The Utah police came and pulled me out of the restaurant and searched all my bags in the middle of the airport. Like, didn't pull me back, like opened my shit up in the middle of the thing because the bartender said that they thought I was selling weed.
Dang.
Got snitched on. But like, I've had some of the weirdest fucking experiences in the airport. I've never done it in
that woman a
Atlanta,
prohibitionist
but, like,
now?
I had something kind of happen like that one time. I was flying back from Detroit, Michigan, your favorite place, Nicole.
The D?
Yes, from the D. And I had just got done smoking and went to the counter to check in and all of that X, Y, and Z. And right after I left, I guess the people said that I smelled like weed. And so one of these little cops rolled up on me on one of those, what are those, on the Segway in the airport. Okay.
Paul Blart.
Yes. Yeah. Like, and asked me for my ID and whatnot. And asked me this, and that. I'm like, I finished smoking. I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, I'm, you know what I mean? I wanted to relax for my trip. I'm a medical patient. And ended up go through security, get on the plane, land at LAX. As I'm waiting at the baggage carousel for my bags, fucking 21 Jump Street fucking cop walks up to me, fucking straight leather jacket, black shirt and jeans, and says, "Hey, are you Jason Beck?" I'm like, "How can I help you?" And he says, "I'm with LAPD," and shows me his badge and says, "Hey, you came up on our flight detection service or whatever, whoop-de-whoop. And so I'd like to talk to you for a bit and look through your luggage." And so to which I replied, "Unless you have a warrant, I don't really have time for this, and I've got to go," and got my bags and hopped in a cab and got the fuck up out of there real fast.
Dang.
When I was waiting for my plane out of Charleston, it was like less than a week ago, they brought a dog into the waiting area, and there were 2 flights going to New York in the waiting area at the same time. I mean, it was pretty full, and then another flight. And yeah, the dog just went up and down the aisles and sniffed everybody's bags, and just, they just walked him around. But I guess they seized 40 pounds off of some woman in Charleston who was traveling. They did a 40-pound cannabis seizure at the airport. I mean, to which I say, like, who cares? Who's gonna die from that? What's the horrible negative outcome that would have gotten achieved if she would have traveled with that? I mean, and why aren't you looking for fentanyl, which is actually killing people?
Isn't fentanyl Schedule 2?
It is. Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, they're not even looking for drugs as much as they're looking for money, because they take the money and unlike a criminal suit, they don't have the burden of proof. So they take the money, and then you have to hire a lawyer for 10 to 50 G's to try to get your money back. And a lot of people are even reticent to try to get their money back, because then what they'll do is the first communication
that could spark a whole nother investigation.
Yeah, the first thing is like, "Oh, you want your money back? So cool. Let's go call the IRS real quick and tell them about this money you got and make sure you paid your taxes on it." And so it's just levels of extortion. And then what they do with that money is it doesn't have to go into the general fund. It goes directly into the police department that seized it, so they can buy, more of their toys. Yes, and I just want to mention something, because back when the riots were happening, this whole defund the police thing happened, and the right wing took that statement of defund the police and ran with it, saying that people on the left and people who are concerned about police departments being militarized want to defund the police. And it's not defund the police meaning give the police no money. What they want to do is they want to train the police in how to do their job without being afraid, so they can stop shooting innocent people. And secondarily, the defund part meant stop the U.S. military from giving the police military training and military weaponry, like the SWAT tanks that they give them.
Matthew.
Matthew.
Yes. No, we agree with you wholeheartedly.
Okay.
We got to keep it rolling up.
I'm sorry.
We got to keep it rolling that one. All right. So up next, she's a New York City based 25-year board certified Michigander and widely respected expert in CBD, here to serve us up with our daily dose of truth. Dr. Mary Clifton, what do you have for us today? Great to see you again.
Great to see you, Rico. Thanks for that great introduction. I have a article out of Alabama.com. Alabama City grapples with confusion and misconceptions over a medical marijuana dispensary. In one Alabama city, a battle is underway to make sure that the debate over allowing for medical marijuana dispensary doesn't turn into an overall debate about the legalization of recreational pot. This is Fairhope, where Fairhope city officials are battling misinformation. And the mayor said on Tuesday she's worried about the confusion from the public over Alabama's 2021 state law that established the state as the 37th to legalize marijuana for medical purposes. This is just a legalization, and they're talking about whether or not they should allow a dispensary in their city. But she's the mayor, Sherry Sullivan, is quoted as saying, this doesn't mean that people are going to be walking around on sidewalks and smoking marijuana. And the state isn't making this look like candy. It's a very regulated industry. And they're not in the process of legalizing it recreationally. They're simply in the process of legalizing a dispensary opening in the town. But there's particularly a doctor who is hoping the council will vote down the ordinance. Dr. Steve Whitmer, a physician in Fairhope who sees hospice patients in Daphne, told the council he believes that the medical use of marijuana will bleed into the general public, compared it to the opioid crisis that is leading to drug overdose deaths nationwide. A quote from Dr. Whitner: in the mid-90s, under a lot of pressure and research and organization, as we know now as Purdue Pharmaceuticals, opioids became marketed for the management of non-cancerous pain. Look at where we are 20 years later with that crisis. We are talking about the opioid crisis in the US, which has claimed many lives. Now we're beginning to retreat on those drugs widely for non-cancerous pain. He believes that medical marijuana may be valuable for congenital seizure disorders, but doesn't see it as valuable for anything else, and also stated concerns about risks for adolescent and childhood community use increasing, and an increase in vehicle crashes. The State Cannabis Commission established one universal flavor, peach, for the jelly cubes and lozenges that will be part of the new program. You can't smoke it or vape it in Alabama. You can't add sugars and make your own edibles at home. That is illegal in Alabama. And really, Alabama's said that it was up to more research to determine if a dispensary could be a true menace to society. They're going to vote on the ordinance a little later this week, but Whitner's comment is, quote, carrying weight with me, said one city councilman, since he is a physician. And he was also concerned that they were really opposing recreational marijuana and not really understanding that this is just a medical marijuana issue. Some of Alabama's largest cities have acted. Birmingham held a meeting in October. Tuscaloosa and Dothan also did last month. And there's no guarantee that any city or county, even after voting in support of medical marijuana dispensaries, will get one. Alabama state law is only allowing for 37 dispensaries. Applications for those dispensaries are due on October 24th. And in my opinion, this article is such a sad statement of how remarkably effective the DARE program was in getting people to think that cannabis was a gateway drug, and also that it's dangerous, that it's going to cause problems with adolescents and children, when we've got clear research in states that have been legal for a long time that the use of cannabis in adolescence and childhood does not increase when you legalize cannabis in your state, especially exclusively medical. And there's no evidence that it's going to drag somebody into an opioid abuse hole either. And the data on driving is really inconsistent. Some people even being potentially better drivers when they use cannabis because it treats ADHD or lack of being conscious. So there's so much ongoing misinformation that is leading this city council down the wrong road by a misinformed doctor, and I find this whole article really unfortunate. And I'm Dr. Mary Clifton, coming to you from my new apartment in Manhattan, so that's why I'm having internet issues. I have all this weird black around me. I'll look better next week.
You look good with black around you, Dr. Mary.
Oh, yeah.
Like I was saying in my article earlier this week, we really need to nip this reefer madness in the bud, like right off the bat. Where all these states that are looking to legalize are right around the corner, whether it's a ballot initiative or not. You gotta do your research and fight back against these legislators, against these people in control, unfortunately against other doctors too. That are leading the charge on some of these as well, because they're just going to be popping up and they're just going to get crazier and crazier with the stories. And we see it popping up overseas too, Jason, with your story earlier this week. Reefer madness, fuck that shit. We have the science to back our initiatives, and we have the people too. And the research has been done here and abroad. So it does not lead to more kids smoking. It does not lead to a lot of these other illnesses. And of course, you're going to have like new stuff pop up left and right because the data is still new. Right. So you're going to have people with CHS. You're going to have people that are they're going to have adverse reactions and everything. But those are exceptions to the rule. And overall, it is more safe than any of these opioids that people are putting out there. Period.
I mean, people have adverse reactions to like certain vitamins, you know, so that's that when we actually go through the actual numbers and the statistics, like you're saying, of comparatively to all the things that it's being, you know, what was Jason's article said it was like crack and heroin. It was like
crack and heroin.
That's for
and
sure
the
not true.
progressive agenda is terrible. Something
That's
like
for
that.
sure not true.
Yes.
But I'm going to continue to believe that. I mean, I know Gretchen doesn't think it and other people are kind of, I believe in it as a medicine, but I really do think that cannabis is going to get a lot further if, as far as legally, if we stop on that whole train as much as like proving it and just being like, give it to the people. And those of us who know and are in the know will do it and like make sure that there's good shit available. You know what I mean? Like, and then we have to be the legends of that. And we have to be the fucking champions on that. Like in this industry, if you believe in that, like when it does go adult use across the whole fucking nation and it's like alcohol and the ATF has it, you can get your fucking guns and your weed and your beers at the same fucking block. I'm going to be like, America.
Yeah, America, home of the crossfade.
That's right. Crossfade for the win.
They have to keep sending that safety message home to people because they still think that cannabis is dangerous and deadly and a gateway drug and it's going to result in all kinds of car crashes and it's just not. But we have to keep pushing on all of
too much water.
Yep, exactly.
Too much water.
Too much water. That's right. Too much water.
Don't cannabis. Right, except for that dealer that had a bale of cannabis like fall on his head from the back of his truck, and he was
the first ever cannabis death.
Cannabis. Don't let the bale of cannabis fall on your head. Other than that, you're fine.
I mean, I had a friend whose federal judge at sentencing told them that the government pays me to believe that marijuana is dropped out of the sky in crates from helicopters. So who knows, Dr. Mary? Maybe that did happen. But nonetheless, we got to get to the dope dad himself to land this plane. That's right. He normally takes the plane off, but today he gets to land the plane. That's because he's been hanging out with his daughter doing babysitting dad duty type of stuff because that's all he can do. Because he was backpedaling on safe banking so much, he tripped over CRT, and all of a sudden now is on the IRL. That's right, the injured reserve list. He's starting a home daycare for kids. So, you know, if you have children that need to be watched, reach out to the dope dad himself because he's trying to make some extra money for the honey. That's right. It is the dope dad himself, Rico Lamitte.
Yes, sir. Dope Daddy Daycare. I'm enlisting the Count of St. Germain to be my right-hand man. All right, so my story, I'll be real quick, as quick as I can right here. My story is coming from Nate Palmer of the New York Times. New York City's first cannabis boss wants to combat canophobia. Author, advocate, activist in Brooklyn's own Dashida Dawson is headed home to the Empire State, and the task ahead is immense. To lead the charge in an effort to transform New York's thriving illegal market into one that's legit and even expected by some to immediately compete with, if not all-out eclipse, many of the established major markets, including California. Per the article, Dashida Dawson is going to be the Cannabis New York City founding director. Per the article, Dawson grew up in East New York, Brooklyn at the height of the war on drugs and was convinced early that she wanted nothing to do with weed. She said her backpack was searched at 10 years old by transit police officers for drugs and on the way to school. And as a teenager, she saw officers assault her friends over small amounts of cannabis. But everything changed after the sudden death of her mother in 2016. Her mom was a longtime cannabis consumer who previously recommended cannabis to her to treat health issues, leaving her tired and in pain. The event inspired Dawson to leave corporate America and jump headfirst into the cannabis industry, enrolling first into Arizona's medical program. But she's since become a global cannabis advocate, award-winning Fortune 100 business strategist, best-selling author on the cannabis industry, whose advocacy and thought leadership has been featured across countless outlets. 20 years of business development, strategic management, brand marketing experience, and she's led transformative organizations both in public and private sectors, and nearly a decade of those have been focused on cannabis alone. She was pivotal in the 2021 landmark passage of New York's Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act while fighting for legalization on the East Coast. But she was tapped to lead the cannabis regulation in Oregon as a cannabis program manager for the city of Portland, overseeing regulatory licenses, compliance, education, and equity initiatives. As Cannabis NYC director, she'll be serving as a liaison between SBS, other agencies in New York State Office of Cannabis Management, the community stakeholders, while also working to establish and collaborate with New York City Cannabis Advisory Council. I've known Deshita for years now, and I've worked alongside her as a founding board member of the Association of Cannabis Health and Medicine. I reached out to congratulate her yesterday and invite her on for today, but unfortunately she couldn't make it this morning on so short notice, and she said she'd be joining us later on a future date. And she gave me permission to share parts of our conversation exclusively with the High at 9 team and our audience. She said that she's got her Timbs on and she's ready to work, and there's been no downtime between PDX and NYC. She's threaded a national approach to local, equity-centered regulation and facility of legacy to legal transition. Dawson's incredibly proud of the work that her team did in Portland over the last 2.5 years and intends to amplify the best while innovating the rest, because New York City is such a big, diverse market. And while super hype personally to make it back home for this full circle moment, she said that she's not just saying go me, she's saying go us, because she'll definitely be calling on the communities, New York and beyond, that made her who she is, both inside cannabis and out, to help deliver her lofty goals in a massive market. It's going to be a hard job, but Dawson still believes there will be significant influence and progress for the total global industry made it in New York City. She'll be starting with education and reframing the language of cannabis equity and reform, government accountability to the history, and expanding the scope of perceived opportunity. Everyone won't be having the opportunity to get licensed or to have a licensed business, and the majority of New York's ecosystem will not be licensed. But the question that she'll be driving home to herself and constantly drawing inspiration from is, how do we make sure there's equity in all those spaces creating this massive market? We often speak here on High 9 News of how much opportunity New York has in as the final major metropolitan American market to legalize. It's got a rich legacy, market history, people, first culture, and is the financial epicenter of the world. But here in Los Angeles, we've seen firsthand now how hope can quickly devolve into chaos, corruption, and uncertainty without the proper alignment of people, philosophies, and processes. Personally, I've been bearish on the probability of New York delivering on the lofty goals they put on themselves. Fairly critical on a state level, with Governor Kathy Hochul leading the charge and racking up multiple controversies and scandals out the gate. Eric Adams, former cop who's brought in open window policies back from the dead. The Giuliani era stop and frisk initiative that sowed distrust between the communities of color and law enforcement. Though it did clean up Manhattan streets, it was at the expense of Black and brown communities, fueled by landmark corrupt mob-tied real estate deals essential to the rise of Donald Trump. My industry network's pretty expansive, but I'd never claim to have relationships with everybody who's somebody in cannabis. And there's probably less than a handful of folks I personally know capable of successfully bridging New York's gaps between wellness, business, and lifestyle lanes. But from first-hand experience, I'd say that Deshita Dawson's at this moment more capable of giving the Big Apple its best shot at reaching its potential. Congratulations, Madam Director Dawson, on the historic appointment, and good luck with all that lies ahead. Congratulations to the New York City cannabis community. Y'all got a real one. I'm Rico Lamitte, dopest dad on the street for High at 9 News, and I love you all.
Thank you so much for landing that plane. Yes. I'm not even going to let Jason Beck have an intervention in that, and I'm going to go ahead and close this show out. Thoughts and opinions? Oh, wait, that's the disclaimer. Thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us, Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to our audience and our supporters for tuning in daily and listening to the insanity that is a developing cannabis industry. Thank you to the haters for still talking about us. Huge thank you to True Classic, Bella Flor Golf Tournament, and LAXCC for helping us keep the lights on, and to the correspondents for being absolutely amazing, and to Cannabis for giving us a reason to do this. Thank you to 3 is 4 for helping us create a space in this mini-verse, And thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us. Cut it off. Don't let Jason talk.
Thanks, all.
You are tuned in to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebs and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and enthogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck, Rico Lamitte, and Nicole West, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time. Thank you for getting high at 9 with us.